Meet Michelle, a wedding photographer who runs a successful photography business with her husband Gustav. It takes stunning photos. Check it out for yourself. Michelle has an avid love for travel, and when she's not taking photos, she's traveling around the country with her husband Gustav as the Wandering Africans. But before Michelle was living the dream, she encountered quite a few obstacles to even become a photographer, and this is her story. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the She Just Got Going podcast, a podcast about entrepreneurship and career advice. Today I'm very excited about our episode because I'm talking to Michelle Geldenhuys from the Geldenhuys Photo and Film, and we're just going to speak about your photography journey. So yeah, Michelle's had a very interesting journey leading up until where you are now. So I'm just going to give you the floor to tell us pretty much how you got into photography.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks for having me. I think it's very, very cool what you're doing. So just firstly, well done. I know starting something new is always really difficult. So well done. I think you should be really proud of yourself.
Thank you.
And then, for me, my name is Michelle and I'm a wedding photographer and my husband is the wedding videographer in our business, and our business is the Geldenhuys. So basically how I started, I always say to people, I never really know, why I got into photography. It was never, a conscious decision, hey, I'm going to be a photographer. So basically, after school, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And my mom always told me that I would be a teacher, or she thought I would be a teacher. And so obviously I was like, okay, well, maybe I should go study teaching, because I think for all of us in that time, or even now, there's so much pressure to go study. It's kind of you have to go study.
Go get a degree.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing to do.
It is. I mean, not really. But anyway. Yeah. So I was like, okay, cool. Let me go study teaching, because I do love children. I've always loved children. And I went to study foundation phase education. And it just wasn't for me. So basically that whole year, or let me backtrack. When I was in high school, I worked really hard and I did really well in school. So obviously I had this mindset of, I'm going to work so hard and it's going to be so awesome and whatever. And then just to give everyone kind of a picture of foundation phase education, I think we had 8 hours of class the whole week. So, I mean...
And did you study at Tux?
No, in Bloemfontein at Koffsies, yeah.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, so I grew up in Bloemfontein and then my parents moved to Pretoria. Literally the last day of my matric exams, they moved. Oh, wow. So I was like, okay, bye. I'm staying in Bloem. Yeah, so then I was in Bloem. And so then when I got to the education, it was so not mentally challenging at all. I felt... I almost felt, I don't want to say depressed because I think it's overused, but it was kind of really down the whole time because I just didn't feel challenged at all.
Yeah.
So then in that year, I knew I wanted to work with children, or I thought I wanted to work with children. And then I was like, okay, maybe I should try something a bit more challenging. So I didn't really know what to do. So I started researching. And then I came across occupational therapy. I was like, okay, well, that's going to be a bit more challenging and they work with kids. Maybe I should do that.
Yeah.
Meantime, I had no idea what an occupational therapist is. I don't remember actually making that decision, yes, I want to be an OT.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, cool. Let me go do that.
Do you want to tell people a little bit actually
about OT?
What an OT does? Just briefly for people who don't know what OT is.
Okay, so it's occupational therapy. And I mean, for someone who studied this for 2 years, I really still don't really have an idea what it is. But it's basically like a physio, but more holistic. So they focus on not just exercising, but kind of adjusting every aspect of your life to optimize the way you live. So anyone can go to an OT. It's not just for people who have an issue. But they work with mental illness. They work with old people, children who struggle with school, how to adapt their environment so that they can actually function at a normal level in school. So I think that's kind of a basic thing, but they just focus on using kind of activities to enhance the way you live. Yeah, so I went to study occupational therapy, and then that is the complete opposite of education. So there you have class every day for 8 hours. So it was very, very mentally challenging, which is obviously...
So you got your challenge.
Yeah, I got my challenge, but it was too challenging. Yeah, but I think just there, it was kind of okay, now I'll switch to something else because of also the wrong reason. It's not the reason why you should be studying something. And I went through a lot of challenges in that time. And it was just... I just knew it wasn't what I was supposed to do. but I didn't know what I was supposed to do. So I studied that for 2 years, and in my first year, so my first year, in my education year, I was like, okay, well, I'm really not challenged. I'm going to get a job. So I started tutoring, and I didn't know what to do with the money. I mean, it wasn't a lot, but I was just like 15 rand an hour. I don't know how much it was, but anyway. And then, so I just started saving, and this is what I tell people. I'm not 100% sure if it's the truth, but I think one day I just went on to Take a Lot, and there was a camera on special, and I was like, I like taking photos, I should get a camera. And then I bought the camera with all the money that I had saved. I was like, okay, cool, I'm a photographer now, cool. Not really.
Hire me.
Yeah, not at all. So then I just got the camera, and I really don't have any idea like what my thought processing was, like when I got the camera and why I was taking photos or anything. Like I cannot tell you I went in with a mission to be a photographer, because that's definitely not the truth. But I think there was a lot of people our age, especially here in Pretoria, I think it was a big thing. There was a lot of new photographers, and everyone was taking these awesome photos and exploring the whole time, and it was all about like adventure and everything. And I was like, I'm also gonna do that. So then I would like get all my friends. I told them, okay, we're gonna do a photo shoot now, so come prepared, wear something nice, we're gonna take photos of you. And it was literally just like me taking photos of my friends for the fun. And I think I also just started an Instagram page literally just for that reason, not for any business reason.
These are just my friends, this is just something I enjoy.
Just for the fun of it. And then I remember like getting my first like inquiry, and I was like, whoa. And I think I charged 200 rand, and it was like a portrait session, and I was like, oh my word, I'm making money, like this is so cool. So then I think just the more I posted, and obviously the Instagram algorithm was a bit different like 5 years ago, like now it's a completely different story. I mean, wow. But I think that time like just more people started seeing it. And then I basically was doing OT and photography. And I mean, by my third year of studying, I was kind of doing photography for like 2 years, but not really seriously. Like I didn't consider myself a photographer. And then in my last year of OT, my second year, I was just like doing 50% photography and 50% OT. And like OT is something that you have to do 100%, otherwise you're really not going to do well. And then
true for a lot of things when you study.
Exactly. And then in that time, like I just kind of knew that I needed to pursue photography. I mean, I hadn't booked any weddings. We just do weddings, so that's what we specialize in. And I hadn't booked any weddings. I think I second shot for like 2 people at that time, but I just knew something in me, like I had to pursue the photography. And then at the end of my second OT year, I knew. So then I just basically told my parents, hey, I'm not going to be studying anymore, and I'm going to pursue photography. That's also a long story. But then I basically just transitioned into doing just photography. And then my first year of just photography, I still had like, I was an au pair, and I worked at school. I mean, I was a teacher, like my mom said. But then I was working at a school as a teacher's assistant, and then eventually a teacher up until August. So just to like sustain myself while I was pursuing my photography career. So in my head I was like, I'm a photographer, I'm not a teacher, I'm not an au pair, I'm a photographer, making it work until I can do it by myself.
And how was like the practical experience of teaching for you? Because it was like, I don't really know how to explain it, but I think for me, I loved the kids. Like the kids were incredible for me. And the school that I worked at, I mean, it was such a tough environment, because the teachers were so negative. I think that was what affected me much more than what like the teaching actually did. I mean, I would wake up in the morning and like not want to go at all, because I just knew that it was such a bad environment. And what makes me sad is it was like considered like a little Christian school. And I mean, I'm not saying that they're not Christians, but I just think the way that they treated people wasn't very Christian-like. So for example, there was a little boy, and he was difficult, but I think he had ADHD, so he couldn't sit still, and like they didn't treat him well at all. They just considered him like this naughty kid, and I mean, they would say, oh, he has ADHD, but it's not something that they would treat or help him with it at all. And at one stage, they just got so mean to him, and I mean, he's 4 years old. I mean, come on, 4 or 5. It was baby.
Exactly. And then it just got to a point where like he would just sit there and not just interact at all, because he just felt like he probably didn't feel like he was valued. So,
and that breaks my heart, because I feel like, I mean, on the other episode we kind of discussed the working environment as well, because sometimes people might feel like, oh, I want to leave my career, and it's not even the career that's the issue, it's the environment that you're in. And the last place that should be a terrible working environment is a school.
Yes.
Because like teachers obviously deserve so
Shaping
much
children.
more credit for like what they're doing in kids'
Exactly.
lives. And so yeah, but I guess like even though you didn't go into teaching and it's not about a teaching career, I think also the school that you end up going to teach at is so important. Whether it's where you teach or where you work, like where you choose to work is important.
It is. Yeah, I mean, I think I read something this morning. It was like a cute little story. I don't know. I think someone shared it on our family group. But it was a little kid had gone into his room and like put up all his pictures on the wall. And then his mom came in and she said, "Oh, that looks so nice." And then he said, "Yeah, my teacher said I'm an artist." And I was like that is literally the power that teachers have. And I won't say that I can see myself as a teacher, but I do think that it is such an important thing. And I think for me, it also like the school that I went to, it was really so much importance was put on the role that teachers play. And they do play a really important role. So yeah, for me, that school, it was really just so sad for me because they weren't shaping children the way they should be. So that was very sad for me. And I think that environment was just really tough for me to be in, because obviously I was also, how old was I? 21 or 20. So it's not like, and the teachers are like 50. So it's not like I can tell them, "Hey guys, you should really have a better attitude."
Change your attitude.
Yeah. So no, I couldn't do that. So it was really not good. And then I think I just started also there just even more realizing like I shouldn't be a teacher. It's not what I should do. So I love the kids and I loved working with the kids. Even now sometimes I will like go through my photos and I see the photos of the kids. I'm like, oh my word. So, but I know I made the right choice. So I'm not like regretful at all. But so that is kind of like the environment that was. Yeah.
And so when the photography started taking off, did you always know this is now what was going to sustain you? Because like you said, you were teaching and you were doing the photography, but it was more to sustain the photography. At that time, did you know you could make a career out of being a photographer?
So I don't think I knew the extent of it, but I think for me, like I felt like it was my calling. So I think, let me just give context for that. So while I was studying my second year of OT, I had to make the choice to move. And obviously like it had to be a faith-based decision for me. Like it's not just, I feel like I should be a photographer and I should be that. No, so in my second year, I really wanted it to feel like I had to know. I didn't want it to be like, I'm going into this and I'm going to see what happens. So in that time, Pastor Art was also preaching a lot about, not career specifically, but the one thing that he said was that when you are in your calling, it will seem easy to other people. So I think the example that I always use is a doctor. When I look at a doctor, I'm like, oh, that looks easy. I just go to the doctor. He just quickly looks if I have a cough and easy, cool. And meantime, you don't understand like the skill that it takes to do that. And then for me with the OT, it really felt like that with my friends. It felt like they were all studying not as hard as I was, and they were doing so well, and the patients they got, it was so easy for them to analyze the patients, and I got the most difficult patients. Like, it was horrible, and it literally felt like I'm studying harder than them and I'm doing much worse than them. So it just felt so hard for me. And then, like I said, with the photography, I had no like intention of doing all these things, but it just seemed to happen for me. And I think for me, that was like a key moment in my life. Like when I'd say that it was like, when it's your calling, it will seem easy to other people, but for you, it just happens naturally. And that was for me like a turning point. Because I just felt like I knew it's my calling, because I'm not putting in as much effort as what other people are, but it is just flourishing. So for me, it was like, I know this is what I have to do. And I think I just went into it with the thought that I am gonna be a photographer. This is gonna be my career. But I didn't like know what it all held. And I think also like from where we came, so in Bloemfontein, the photographers there, I won't say that they have a lot of vision, like in terms of like going places. For us, or for me, in the beginning, it was always about I can do better and I'm gonna do better, where for them it was like, oh, we're gonna shoot at the same venue every week,
in
and
our
we're gonna
small
love
town.
it. Exactly. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I
Yeah.
don't want anyone to listen to this and think, oh, I should be aiming for whatever else. I mean, if you're content with shooting in your town and living in your town, because I mean that is it is easier just to stay in one place. But for me, it was just always like, I want to do better, I want to shoot better, I want to be a better photographer. And I think that just led to where we are now. And I think that's obviously also like the grace that God has given us in our business to be better the whole time and to really try and improve the whole time.
Okay, cool. So I agree 100% with you, because I think for us, we have our faith, we're both Christian, and you really do need to consult the Holy Spirit about every single decision you make. And so, I mean, if you feel like, because one of my favorite scriptures is in Ecclesiastes, and it talks about a time for everything. And so there's a time to stay, there's a time to leave. And so, you know, if someone feels like there's a season that they're called to where they have to stay in their town, be obedient to that, because you get blessed by your obedience.
You do.
And I mean, at the end of the day, like, our life is shaped by the decisions we've made. So, you know, you want to make the right decisions. And I think for me personally, it's always been easier for me to make the right decisions by just knowing that this is what the Holy Spirit is telling me. And so you had that knowing of, you know, I have to do more. And that worked out amazingly for you. Pretty much you can see the work that they do on the Geldenhuys Photo and Film Instagram page. It is amazing.
Thank you.
But now we're going to jump into the question that I ask everybody on the podcast. And so it's 2 questions. The first one is, what is one piece of advice you wish you could give younger Michelle before she started this whole crazy photography journey? And then the second one is, what was one of the fears you felt you had back then that you've really overcome now, and how? And it's not to shed like focus on the topic of fear, but really to show that we all have fears and people overcome them, and it's possible to overcome. They don't have to have as much of that power over you as they seem to. So
Okay, so I think the advice that I would give myself, it's so difficult to choose that, because I think looking back, you never really know what's going to happen. But I think I would just say to myself, like, it's okay, like, you're going to be fine. Because I think that was one of the biggest like worries that I had, was like, I have no idea what's going to happen. I have no idea where my life is heading. And I think a lot of like 18 or 19-year-olds feel that way. They're like, cool, I'm just going to study something because I have to study something. And actually they have no idea what they want to do with their life. I just want to tell myself, like, you're going to be fine. Like, just trust in the Lord, and just trust that whatever, like, the promises that He's given you, that those things will come to pass. So I think just, also, I think for myself, I think just one thing that I would say is like hard work. You can never underestimate like the power of hard work, because I think a lot of people, I mean, they have faith and they believe it's going to happen, and I did believe, but I think a lot of people don't realize how much work goes into creating something. So I think one thing that we saw a lot, like when we started, there were a lot of other photographers also popping up. There's a lot of new younger photographers now. I think when we were starting out, it was more like an older crowd, and now 5 years later, there's a lot of younger people, which is amazing. It's awesome to see so many young people doing this, but at that time they weren't. And a lot of those people that started out with us, I mean, sure, there are a lot now, but a lot of people who started out with us, they aren't really as far ahead in their career as what we are now. And I think the only difference there, I mean, obviously like faith plays a huge part, but a lot of those people aren't as far ahead in their career because they didn't work as hard as what we worked. And I think a lot of times people see the success that our business have and they're like, oh, they're great photographers. There are a lot of great photographers who just never utilize their potential by working hard. So I would just tell myself, you're doing great, and just keep working hard to achieve whatever you want to achieve. And I think I would just tell that to anyone, like no matter what career you're in, no matter what you're doing, just work hard and put as much effort in as possible. And I think an example I would give of this, and I mean, at that time, I really didn't know why I was doing it, but I used to, every single weekend, I had like 5 shoots. And I mean, they would be free shoots, let me just put that out there, but I just loved taking photos. So Friday night at sunset, I would have a shoot. Saturday morning, there would be a shoot. Saturday afternoon, so obviously when the sun rises and sets, and then Sunday morning before church, like I would go and take a photo shoot, then I would go to church, and then, okay, not Sunday night because I would be at church. But literally I would have like 5 shoots every single weekend, just because I loved it so much and wanted to work so hard to be able to do what I wanted. And then I would post all those photos on Instagram and really just
like build up your portfolio.
Exactly, and get as much experience as possible to be able to do what I wanted to do. So I think that's one thing that a lot of people miss. And I think especially our generation, a lot of people feel very entitled. They feel, oh, I deserve. And you don't deserve anything. You deserve what you work for.
I always tell myself the world owes you nothing.
Yeah.
And I mean, the sooner you realize that, the better. But don't let that realization now stop you from always being the hardest worker in the room. And I actually wanted to ask you to elaborate on the hard work. Because I know for some people, it's like, yeah, but I'm working hard. Like when I was in uni, I thought I was working hard. And then as, you know, you learn, you know, you can work smart instead of hard. But you're like, you know what? Now that I even have a routine, I have capacity to do more. I could have actually, you know, worked harder. So, you know, what was like working hard for you?
I think there's a lot of parts to it. So I will speak from our business point of view, from what our business is. So I think firstly, service is so important. So I think for us, we've seen so many photographers, and I'm not saying we've never delivered late, because we have. And I won't say, I'll just leave it there. But really just sticking to your deadlines, giving your clients the absolute best experience that they can possibly have. And I think for our industry as well, a lot of people do not realize that this is the best day of people's lives that we are photographing. So just keep that in your mind whenever you're doing anything, that you want the experience behind the best day of their lives to be the best. So for me, that is really, really important, and working hard in terms of editing so that you can actually deliver on time, so that they don't feel that it wasn't a priority to you. And I think just like being practical with yourself, like actually setting out a time for everything in your day. So that is really important. I mean, working for yourself, that's number one, really hard in terms of boundaries. So I think one thing that we have really tried to do and really instill in our business, also because we're a husband and wife working together, it's really important, number one, to prioritize our business and our relationship with each other, especially our relationship. That's more important than our business. But just to actually set times to do things. So I mean, I won't say that we stick to it every day, but it's important that you have a guideline for that. Otherwise, you're not going to do anything. Let's just be really realistic. So for us, every day is basically the same. We wake up, we work, and by about 4 o'clock we're done working. Then we go to the gym, and after gym we don't work again. Then we spend time together, and I think that has also just created boundaries for us to really focus on working. We know when we have to work, and we also know when we will have time to be together. So I think just in terms also of the hard work is I think you will know when you are working hard. I think you will feel compelled.
You will feel it.
Yes, you will. I mean, if I'm sitting on the couch and I know that I have a shoot that is due on Friday and it says Monday, I know I have that shoot due. And like, I just think, you will know when you are not working hard. But also, I think if you're not seeing success as much as you want it, you will also know that you aren't working as hard. Obviously, there are other things that come into it as well. It's not just, we can't just say, if I work hard, I will be successful. That is also not the truth.
But it's such a big component of it.
It is, exactly. If you're not going to work hard, you are not going to see success. Like, that is true. But obviously, a lot of things, I feel like with OT, I was working so hard and it wasn't working. But, I mean, that can also be argued a different way. But, I just think that hard work pays off.
Yeah, but it's exactly, like, just to backtrack, it's exactly what you said with the OT, like, you felt like you were working hard and you weren't seeing results. There's nothing wrong with that, but then be grateful that it's a little bit of an indicator that you might need to reconsider why you are struggling so much in an area and you're just not seeing the results that you want to. And maybe go back to the drawing board, maybe you have to find a different approach, or maybe this isn't what your calling is.
Exactly.
And so,
I think a lot of people, once again, in our generation, they feel they have to go study something. I felt it. My sisters felt it. I feel like everyone felt it. We have to go study. I remember when I was in school, the people that took a gap year, we were always like, why are they taking a gap year? That's so stupid. Like, you're wasting your life.
They had a whole year to figure their life out.
Exactly.
And
so I'm like, we always talk about, like, when we have children, what do we do differently with them. And I mean, my parents are amazing, and I can definitely, like, give them so much credit for what they've done. And I'm not saying that they were wrong in making us study, but for my children, I would just tell them, if you don't know what you want to do, it's fine. You don't have to go study, because number one, you're going to waste money paying for the studies.
Shame.
So that's not fun. But you're also going to waste time. So I always think to myself, if I had studied photography, or not studied photography, started with it 3 years earlier, because I had actually found my passion, just imagine like what 3 years could have been to my business as well. So I think that is a huge thing. If you do not know what to study, take a year off.
Yeah,
but
and really think about it.
Yes, but take a year off and actually do something. So that is a
That's very
huge thing.
important.
I've heard of people that take a gap year and then they just lie on the couch for the whole year and then they just go study anywhere and still change. So,
but that's why I think people have the conception they have about a gap year.
Yeah,
because people
that
don't.
Is what
they're not
portrayed
intentional
as.
with it, and now we think, a gap year is not just rest year, and it's not really that.
No.
You need to actually explore all your options
Exactly.
in a gap year.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, when you're 18 or 17 or whatever old you are, you have no idea what life can be for you. So, yeah, I would say if you're really like doubtful about what to study, take a year. And I mean, for every month, 12 months, you can do something different.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I'm really privileged to have found my passion so early. I mean, it took like 3 years, and 3 years isn't a lot in a lifetime. And I think one thing that my dad told me, and it wasn't actually towards the photography part, but it was when I had to change to OT, I was like, yes, but I just wasted a whole year of my life studying something that I'm not going to be. Meantime, I wasted another 2 years. But he just told me, like, in a whole lifetime of 80 to 90 years, what is 1 year?
Yeah.
And I just want to tell everyone that, like, what is 1 year of actually really discovering what you want to be, if that's going to change your whole life? And I mean, we spoke about it as well, but there are so many people sitting in a job that they really hate because they just felt that they have to do that now that they have studied that. And honestly, for people who are going back to study after they already have a degree and studying something else,
there's nothing wrong with that.
Exactly. And I applaud those people because, wow, that takes a lot of courage. But I just know that I wouldn't want to be 50 or 60 or however old sitting in a job that I really hate and have done for 40 years just because I studied 4 years because now I have to do it.
Yeah.
So, I just think a lot of people should stop being afraid of taking risk. And I would rather waste 4 years of my life studying something. Or what I mean is, like, I would rather have wasted those 4 years and go back again.
Yeah.
Then waste another 40 years. So, I think really,
yeah,
so much wisdom.
No, but it's so funny because also, it's so funny how we say we wasted, that time.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I don't believe anything is ever wasted.
Yes,
you learn something along that journey that is of value that you can take into that next chapter. And I think, like, it's such a difficult topic to navigate. Should I go to uni?
And with parents.
And with parents.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, for whoever's sort of at that junction, I mean, with you said your parents, I don't know if you mentioned it earlier, but when we spoke about it, you said that your parents, weren't the most open-minded when you did not want to go to university, and this is what you wanted to pursue. And how did you kind of get their support in making the decision you made?
So, let me just start with my parents are very cool. I really love my parents. Yeah, they are. They're also in our church, so that is a huge thing for me. But they were very set in that we have to study. And I mean, I think their mindset has changed a lot since then because they have seen, like, what has happened.
Yeah.
But when I went to study, I mean, it was just the thing you have to do. So we said that. And then when I had to switch, they were actually very, like, nice about that. But I think the fact that I wanted to stop studying and not complete my degree, that was a bit of an issue.
Yeah.
But, like, I won't say that we fought about it. Like, I don't remember fighting with him about it. Number one, I don't fight with my parents.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, just from a biblical perspective,
exactly.
we don't cross that boundary.
Yes, you respect them. Exactly.
You respect them, no matter what the situation is. And it can be very difficult. Like, I know people might have very touchy relationships with their parents, but, like, for us, again, we can't deny our faith. Our faith says, like, principle wise, if you honor your mother and your father, things will go well with you. So even if they are in the wrong and you've still been respectful and honoring, then you've done your part.
Yes. So I think basically I 100% agree with you. Like, I didn't want to disrespect my parents, and obviously, like, we forget that they do know better. Like, okay, not always, but they have so much more experience. Exactly. So I think from my parents' point of view, the way that they grew up, the way you make a career is you have a degree. And obviously a lot of things have changed. And I didn't realize, like, a lot of change. I just knew that I had the potential to make a career out of something else.
Yeah.
So I think in the middle of my second year of OT, I just kind of mentioned to them, like, okay, listen, like, I really, and obviously they saw, like, said there was something happening. They knew I was pursuing photography as well. I don't know if they thought it was just a hobby, but yeah, I just think I told them like I'm really considering being a photographer, and I don't know how they completely took it, but it wasn't like with a positive. They were like, okay, you can finish your degree and then you can go do it. And I remember even telling them, because with OT you have to do a ComServe year as well. So I just told them after ComServe, I'm not going to do OT. Like, fine, I'll finish, but like then I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah. So you were even committed to finishing.
I don't know if I will say that. Yeah, I think when we had that conversation,
yes.
I was like, okay, cool, fine, whatever. And then as the time continued to go on, I just knew more and more, and like getting like confirmation that I shouldn't be an OT. I think it was also just so hard to communicate with them, because obviously I also knew like what their wishes were, and I didn't want to go against that. And then at one point I kind of just told them like, listen, this is very serious, like I really don't want to be an OT and I really do want to be a photographer. And I think my mom was a bit more persuaded than my dad, and then the breaking point came. So this, I don't think I've really shared this with a lot of people. I think a lot of people might be a bit shocked, but how OT works is if you fail one subject, you have to repeat the whole year. So you can't just repeat that one subject and carry on. So yeah, and then I was really struggling, and then I failed a subject at the end of my second year, and I felt like a big failure with that, because obviously it wasn't intentional. It wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna fail and then I can stop. But yeah, so I failed one subject, and also with that, like there are only like 50 people in your class, so if you fail, everyone knows, because you are no longer in that class, you're in the next year's class. So with that, I mean, it was a big shock to me when I failed. And then I think with that, my dad was like, okay, like you're not going to repeat the whole year and then still like have to do everything and then not be this. So then I think with that, it was kind of like confirmation, like, okay, you can stop. So they were still very supportive of me. It's not like they were angry at me or anything like that. But I think for them it was a bit disappointing, like I'm not going to lie. But I think now when they look back, they're like, they know this is also what I'm supposed to be doing. So yeah, I failed and then I stopped. But I feel I have absolutely no regrets. Like there's not a day in my life that I think, yes, maybe I should have been an OT. Like I've never had that thought. And I think that's also just once again a confirmation that I did get the right word, that I was obedient to what God had told me. So
it was a big risk, but like it worked out. But again, like you had God sort of giving you that confirmation.
Exactly.
And that's the thing, like sometimes the confirmation we get long before it makes sense to anyone else.
Exactly.
And you just have to you have to be loyal to that, because at the end of the day you are responsible for the life you live.
You are.
Not anyone else. And at the end of your life, when we all die,
it's just gonna be me.
It's just gonna be you, and you have to sort of, look what kind of life you've lived. You are the one to answer for that. Not, oh, so-and-so made me do this. And sometimes maybe people made you do that, but then go back if you can and then walk out the journey you thought you were always supposed to walk out. And it's so great that like God knows you better than anyone else. And so those feelings that he's giving you, like, don't ignore them and really try to honor them. And so I guess the second question, now to sort of wrap up with the second question, but it's so awesome, your story and the thing you had to go through, because sometimes we're really scared to talk about our failures and our disappointments as if no one else fails or gets disappointed. But
everyone does.
Everyone does. And so, we really, I think that's also the heart of the podcast, is not to shy away from those honest and open conversations and to see everyone goes through it. And this is how someone navigated it. And maybe I'm not all alone in that. Because when you feel like you're all alone in situations that can be very difficult, like that, you lose your hope. And once you lose your hope, it's a very difficult time to come back from that. So it's also just to like build hope in people again, to say it happens, but you will get through it. Like that advice you gave yourself, everything will work out. And what do you think, you've sort of answered it, like what was one of your biggest fears at that time that you overcame, and how?
So I actually thought about this quite a bit, but I won't say that I was really fearful. Like I think for me it was just kind of like, I'm just working hard to make this happen. But obviously there is fear and doubt that comes into it. So I think one thing that someone once said, I can't remember who said it, and I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, but this is just what I've made it in my mind. But I think he said, like, the opposite of faith isn't fear, it's unbelief. And I think for me that is really cool, because it's not that I was scared of what was going to happen and what I was going to make of this career. Obviously, there were times where I was like, I'm working like 2 jobs just so I can pursue my career, and I really hope it works out. I won't say that I was afraid that it wasn't going to work out, but I think I just had this trust that what I was told by the Lord was the truth. And I think that was what for me was so much more important than the fear. So really not having fear that this career is going to work out, but really just believing that like what God said to me was the truth. But I think one thing for us that was a big knock was COVID. I think that was the one place where I did have fear. Because I think, let me just explain, for us, we booked weddings like 6 months to a year in advance. So from March to August, September, whatever, it was all booked. We had weddings booked, and that is where we get our income from. So we get like half of it when they book, and then the other half when the wedding actually takes place. And so we had this promise of income, which I would say is actually a huge benefit for our business, because we know we're going to get an income. People always think, photographers, they don't know where their money's coming from, but we know a year in advance that we are going to have money. But anyway, sidetrack. But
it's important, because I think people starting a business should also realize, like, it is your own business, so you can also set your own policies.
Exactly.
So your policy is obviously like 50% now and then 50% later.
Exactly.
And that's something people should actually think about, because if you think, no, I'm only going to get paid when I do the job, you might want to reconsider.
Exactly. Yeah, especially if you're starting out, let's say as a photographer, because then you have like a whole year where you're not getting income if you're going to wait until... And also security. You want security that they're actually going to be using you.
That's true.
But anyway. Yeah, so I think what I was going to say is... so we had like this promise of income from March till September of these weddings that's going to take place. And then COVID happened and everyone is inside and no one's getting married. And literally for like 4 months. And I mean, we're 2 people in our house. So for 4 months we had, I think, like... I can't remember what the amount was, but I think it was like 5,000 Rand coming in. For 4 months. So, I mean, that is really stressful. And I think for me, that was much more like fearful than what starting the business and pursuing the business was. So I think I must say, I think we do handle our finances really well. So we did have savings at least, but a lot of people didn't have savings. And I think that is a really, really bad thing. So have savings, invest your money.
She can't say that enough. Like when the website and everything actually loads later, like we want to share resources about that as well. Because literally, even today will go by, tomorrow will go by, and you'll think, I'll just save later, guys. No. You should be saving now, like yesterday.
No, my goodness. I'll get into that now. But I think just in terms of like that, I was really fearful because I didn't know like what the future held. I think we had no certainty because we didn't know when the lockdown was going to end. We had no idea when we would be able to work. And also like our savings could possibly run out. Like that is a big fearful thing. Like I was even thinking like, my word, like we might have to like move in with my parents. Like, so I think that was the only fearful thing. But once again, you just have to trust like the Lord. So obviously it all ended. So that was amazing. Thank goodness. But in terms of the finances, I mean, Gustav does, my husband, he does all our finances basically, and he is crazy about it. And sometimes he speaks to me about it all the time, and I'm like, I'm just glad he does it. But like he always tells me, the earlier you invest, the more you will have later on in life. And then he goes on the compound calculator and he shows me.
It's so satisfying.
Yeah, he's like, if we invest today, we're going to have this amount later. But if we invest in 5 years, we're going to have this amount. And I'm like, just for 5 years, that makes a huge difference. So I think just one piece of advice I would give to people is really look into that stuff. Like I've spoken to so many photographers, because obviously these are the people I speak to, but they have no idea what they're doing with their money. Like that is a huge thing. If you are living paycheck to paycheck as a photographer, that is very, very dangerous. So I would honestly just advise people, work out like 30% you're going to invest, 30% you're going to have business expenses or whatever. Like make sure that you invest your money and not just save. Like let's just be honest, like saving will not make you rich.
But we'll explain a little definition on what inflation is.
What is inflation?
But pretty much, no. Like putting it away is the first step. But it now needs to grow for you.
Exactly.
Because inflation is happening and you'll notice, guys, is petrol not more expensive? Is our prices not increasing?
No.
Now your money is sitting and it's not, increasing either. So that's why investing is really important.
And I mean, there's so many resources. I think that's the one thing that I also learned with like our career. Like I never studied photography. That's always the one question that every old person with a camera at a wedding asked me, "Oh, where did you study photography?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
I didn't study it because there's so many free resources available to you, like courses or amazing. You get so many amazing courses that you can do from your house. I didn't do one, but but there are resources. Yeah. So like in terms of like the investing, guys, YouTube is incredible. Like everything we know, we've learned from YouTube. So really just invest in yourself so that you can invest your money. So I think just really educate yourself about how to use your money in a wise way so that it will just grow for you and that you don't have to worry about it. I think that's a huge thing. Like so many people worry about when the next paycheck is going to come, and this is in terms of every job, just because they are unsure of how they use their money. So just educate yourself about how to use it in the right way.
Oh, well, it's so awesome. I mean, everything you shared, I've learned a lot from it.
Awesome.
Some stuff I knew because obviously like finances and stuff.
No, I feel like you can teach me about finances, definitely.
Well, that's also part of the podcast. Like, you know, people can follow the podcast on all the different social media platforms, but I am working on a website so that everything and the resources can be in one place. And if you really don't know about the stuff or how to get started, you know, the resources will be there. And it's nice. And it's nice that in your career, you know, there were so many resources available. Like obviously other careers, like if you know in your heart of hearts you want to be a doctor, it's not going to be free resources to go and not be a doctor. You know you have to go to study for that. But like yours was solely on the photography context. And a lot of people might be thinking, sure, should I be saving to like go do like a photography qualification? It's a very valid question. But I mean, everything with even setting up the podcast I learned from you too. So don't underestimate it. But Michelle, thank you so much for everything that you've shared. And I know, like just from the conversation we had today, I really hope that people that hear the story are inspired by it, to not feel like they're in a place where they're stuck and there's no hope for them, and to also know that everything will work itself out. And we spoke a lot about our faith today, and I mean, it's become unavoidable because honestly it's really such a big part of who we are. And you know, if you're not a Christian, and this isn't for you, great, but if you really are curious about it and you do want, you know, to explore this a bit more, it's like, what is it with these Christians and them talking about this God that speaks to them and the Holy Spirit? I mean, you even quoted Foster out. I mean, we're part of a church called CRC, and even in the previous podcast I was talking about how amazing community is. All the connections I've made, all the advice, I mean, that's even how we met each other. And so find community, whether that's in a church, whether that's another place, find a community. Feel free to reach out. You can always message on the social media platforms. If you have questions for Michelle, you can reach out on her social media platforms, which I will also include. But that is it for today. And so thank you so much for your time. And I look forward, you know, to seeing all the incredible stuff that you're going to do, because I know, like, you know, you've been branching out a lot on your social media. I love the content. But the thing is, like, you know, I can see you're so passionate about what you do, and everything you do, you know, you do in excellence, you do intentionally. And so I know everything you set your hand to is going to grow.
Thank you so much.
And I'm so excited for the future for you as well. So thank you for your time today.
Oh, no, it's a pleasure.
And that is it for today, guys. And so, see you next time.